Hello, my name is Petra Barnbaum and I am currently a pre-service teacher studying my Masters of Secondary Teaching. In this video, I'll be discussing moderation in teaching and why it is essential to ensuring fair and consistent marking. The term moderation in relation to teaching can be defined as a quality assurance process that ensures appropriate standards. Moderation is essential to ensuring that grades are fair and uniform, regardless of who is marking. Moderation tests the reliability and validity of assessment and marking. If an assessment is valid, it assesses what it is intended to assess. For example, an assessment that has the purpose of measuring content knowledge, but in actuality measures comprehension, lacks validity. If grading is said to be reliable, the same judgment must be made by different assessors using the same marking criteria and acting independently. Reliability, therefore, is about fairness to students based on comparability between assessors. Some examples of moderation in action include cross-marking or grading, where a group of teachers mark a sample piece to compare styles of marking. Confirming consistency through moderation meetings, where student responses are reviewed collectively, especially when large disparity has been seen across grading between different teachers. And by involving all teaching staff in a unit in the development and review of criteria and standards descriptors. In all forms of moderation, getting a second opinion or more is the key to ensuring fair assessment and marking. Moderation can be done in multiple ways, but the two biggest distinctions in procedure are whether the moderation is performed internally or externally. Internal moderation is done within a school and is usually undertaken by a head of department, but can be done by any subject teacher for their subject. Subject teachers mark their class's assessment, and then an internal moderator checks the marking of each teacher at the top, middle, and bottom of the mark range to make judgments on whether each teacher is marking fairly and consistently. External moderation is where these grades and samples of the student's work are sent to be moderated by education professionals outside of the school. In external moderation, grades are compared and moderated across schools, ensuring that final grades are unbiased and are consistent across the state. Now that we have discussed what exactly moderation is, I would like to look at why it is so vital. Now, when one sees a math equation, for example, the answer is usually clear and concise. For example, the answer of this equation is the square root of c, as per Pythagorean theorem. Moderation doesn't exactly seem necessary in this scenario, as the marking criteria are simply looking for the right answers. The same can be said of multiple choice questions. For example, the answer to this question is simply A. With assessments such as these, the criteria for answers are rigid and are usually limited to the one correct answer. But what happens when there is no one correct answer? What happens when you teach a class such as English, where subjective assessments such as short stories and persuasive essays are commonplace, and concise, objective, correct answers are few and far between? Even subjects where one would expect objectivity, such as biology or chemistry, require personal observations, interpretation, and analysis on most occasions. Objectivity can't even come from a simple short-form descriptive answer, as each student has a different style of writing, and some may have the knowledge of a subject requires, such as knowing how to determine quantities during titration, but they may not have the literacy skills needed to express this knowledge. How, in these varied circumstances, do we as teachers determine grades? As much as we might try to be uniform and fair in our marking, every teacher is different, and every teacher has different values, backgrounds, and interpretations of criteria sheets. Therefore, we need moderation to ensure consistency and make sure our judgments are equitable. To portray the disparity in marking between teachers, I have found a sample graded essay from the California State University, Northridge. This essay's topic is, "We need tolls to solve LA's traffic." For the following demonstration, I would like you to attempt to grade this essay. Of course, not everyone watching will be informed on traffic in LA, and most will not have experience grading university papers. That will not matter for this simple experiment, as it serves only as a thought-provoking exercise rather than a true study. I would like you to pause the video as long as needed to read the essay over the next 3 slides, and to give a grade from A to F based on written expression. Once you have done this, I will move on to the next portion of the exercise. Now that you have attempted to grade the essay, or you have not but simply wish to continue to the next section, I would like you to regrade the essay using the scoring guide on the next two screens. You may or may not wish to change the grading you have given, but feel free to pause the video for as long as necessary to reevaluate your marking. The scoring guide is spread over 2 slides. Now that you have marked both with and without criteria, I would like you to think about which was easier and which marking you think is most accurate if you changed your grading. I would also like you, if you're watching with other people, to compare your grades with your peers, both before and after using the criteria scoring guide. Was your grading the same or different? You may pause the video to compare. I will now tell you the grading that was decided on for this essay by at least 2 faculty members at the California State University, Northridge. Through moderation, this essay was determined to be strong and therefore was graded as a B. Did you mark the same way as the university and your peers? And was your grading closer with or without the scoring guide? This exercise will be different for everyone. Some may grade accurately to the determined grade of a B both times, and some may have graded completely differently. Either way, I hope this exercise provided some insight into the subjectivity of grading and how we need forms of moderation, such as our criteria sheet, to help keep grading consistent and fair. One important reason for moderation is also one that is somewhat uncomfortable for people to talk about. All good teachers want to believe that they are free from bias, but unconscious or implicit bias is unfortunately common in marking. You may have a favorite student that you unconsciously mark less harshly. Alternatively, you may have a student that constantly annoys you and antagonizes you, causing you to be harsher in your grading. Expectation also plays a part in unconscious bias, causing a self-fulfilling prophecy. We tend to give students who we expect to do well better grades than students with a history of doing poorly in school. If a teacher has high expectations of a student, they're far more likely to graduate from high school. Implicit bias can even be triggered by just a name. Unfortunately, students with Black names are more likely to receive lower grades than their peers. Alternatively, students with Asian names are more commonly marked higher than their peers. Keeping marking anonymous is a great way to combat implicit bias, as is avoiding confirmation bias, where you look for evidence to fit pre-existing beliefs. Keeping marking anonymous in a classroom can be difficult though, especially when you know your students and they're writing well. Moderation can help avoid implicit bias altogether, either by allowing external moderators to mark completely anonymously or by allowing other teachers to call out unfair or biased marking. Overall, moderation is an essential part of making assessment and marking fair and consistent, therefore allowing all students the opportunity for success. Thank you for listening to this brief presentation. I hope that it has been informative and that you take away the importance of moderation in marking and assessment.